Hi, guys. Welcome to our daily encounter. As we continue to read the story of Joseph, it becomes very evident that Joseph was a good man. And he was a good man, but he was a good man who suffered hardships. Uh, typically, hardships that were caused by other people. For one, he was envied by his brothers. We saw that in chapter 37. Secondly, he was falsely accused. We read about that today with Potiphar's wife, how she made it to look as though Joseph was trying to take advantage of her sexually. And then we also read today about him being forgotten by the cupbearer. Joseph had interpreted his dream favorably and asked that the cupbearer would not forget him. But it takes 2 years before the cupbearer actually mentions Joseph to Pharaoh. And so this was a man who was envied, who was falsely accused, and then also was forgotten. And again, these are things that good people oftentimes undergo. For one, a good person oftentimes is envied. A good person, a good godly person who tends to their business, who lives an ordered life, who is walking according to wisdom, provided that things run their own course. Typically, a person who lives that type of life is going to have a pretty good life, a pretty decent life. And they're going to be respected typically by people around them, especially those who are above them, as what happened with Joseph in connection to his father. Good people oftentimes have certain blessings in their life that other people become envious of. We could think about Jesus and how the Pharisees were envious of him, and even Pilate recognized the fact that it was because of envy that they had brought Jesus to him. And so oftentimes good people are envied. And perhaps we've experienced that as well, maybe as in the job place or in a family setting or in some type of social setting. Other people see the fruits that come out of a godly life and then become envious of that. And that's a common thing to happen in connection to people who are just good people. But then also, good people like Joseph are oftentimes falsely accused. Because they're good people, people oftentimes have a hard time finding something truthful to say against them. And so oftentimes they're just slandered and maligned. And someone has to make up something in order to try to bring down their reputation. And a lot of that is based on the envy that we spoke about earlier. And so good people are oftentimes falsely accused. Jesus Christ, again, the greatest example of a good person, was falsely accused and was brought to trial wrongly. False witnesses were brought to try to accuse him of some type of wrongdoing. And it can happen to good people, and it does happen to good people all the time. And so when people can't find something wrong with the good person, they make things up, and that's just a part of it. And then lastly, good people are oftentimes forgotten, as Joseph was. You know, good people oftentimes aren't really looking for the spotlight. They're not really looking for all the accolades, and they oftentimes live a quiet life, a humble life. And so as a result, sometimes they can often be forgotten. They might be overlooked. And because they're not the squeaky wheel, because they're not the type that will be boastful and brag about themselves and all that sort of thing, they can oftentimes be overlooked. And that sometimes can be a hardship that a good person has to endure, almost to the point sometimes where a good person might begin to question whether they're taking the right approach to life. But nonetheless, that doesn't mean that being a good person is bad. It's just one of the things that oftentimes happens to good people. And so we can see that good people oftentimes are envied, they're oftentimes falsely accused, and they're oftentimes overlooked. And so we might say, well, what benefit then is there to being good if all these negative things are always going to be happening to a person? Well, then we go back to Joseph's story again. And we see that in the end, Joseph is exalted. That all the hard work, all the hardships and the trials, being envied, being falsely accused, even being overlooked, all those things eventually are overcome. And Joseph sits at the right hand of Pharaoh and becomes second in command over all of Egypt. And so God eventually exalts him, which shows us the principle that Jesus taught, that the first will be last and the last will be first. Because Joseph just endured those hardships, because he did it and held to his integrity, eventually God did exalt him. And we can say that God will do the same for us. Yes, at the moment, it's not very pleasant for people to envy us, to slander us, to overlook us. At the moment, it seems very grievous and difficult, but we have to trust that if we will but follow the Lord, if we'll continue to live a humble walk before the Lord, if we continue to hold on to our morals and to our integrity, that eventually we will be exalted, that God will exalt us. Whether that happens in this life or it happens in the life to come, eventually the Lord is going to bless us. Eventually we will see the fruits of our good works and the things that we have sown in this life. And eventually those things will sprout up and we'll be able to benefit from those things. And so the encouragement would be, just keep on keeping on. Keep on being a good person. Keep on holding on to the morals that you have through Jesus Christ. Keep holding on to your integrity. Even though for the moment it might seem to be working against you, eventually it will lead to exaltation. Eventually it will lead to glory. Eventually it will lead to blessings like we can never even comprehend. So let's be encouraged by that today. And with that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.